I never talk about AI on here. And that's because it's controversial and people have very strong opinions about AI. This is going to be long-winded. I remember when I worked at A&W as a teenager, and I worked there for years. And I remember every single time they changed something on the menu, watching everyone get upset about it. And then you would get used to it and you'd be like, oh, this is just the way things are. Then something else would change, people would get upset. Every single time there is a change, people get upset. People, in general, don't like change. I completely understand all of the reasons that AI is bad. I think that it's going to devastate our environment. It's concerning with CSAM. It's concerning with the fact that you can take clothes off of people. It's concerning that people are making AI music, AI art, and trying to replace people's jobs with an artificial intelligence that half the time is wrong. That's the problem. Even if it was like, even if we could get past the bad part, so often it is wrong. So often, even like moderation is AI enforced. It's very hard to get a hold of a person, right? And so there's biases in AI. AI as a concept outside of humans, I don't have any negative opinions on it. Human nature makes AI dangerous, and people don't like change. I think that AI had the potential and has the potential to be extremely useful, but humans always use things in the worst way imaginable as well. And we have a tendency in human nature to try and run before we can walk. Just like the internet, there's going to be people doing things that is going to be more harmful, and legislation is going to be slow to catch up to it. I think for that reason, AI is dangerous, but I don't necessarily think that AI is going anywhere. I do think that there will be a bubble. I do think that a lot of companies are going to go under. I do think what we think of AI right now is going to be completely reinvented and rolled out differently because that bubble will pop. I don't think our government should be getting in bed with tech giants. I don't think that we should be giving up Canadian drinking water to cool systems, especially considering that there's still people in Canada who don't have access to drinking water. When I lived in Alberta, I guess like if you don't live in Alberta, you might not know this, but when I lived in Alberta, there was portions of the winter, I believe it was in Calgary, where they actually asked people to stop using their electricity so much. Because Alberta and specifically like Calgary and Edmonton have grown so quick, the infrastructure has not caught up to the growth in population. And so what you would see a lot of the times midwinter, he'd be telling you to keep your electricity use down, to keep your heating set at a certain rate. But then you would go downtown into the city core and you would see high rises have all of their lights on. But the power grid is not up to par. And something that also people don't know, I've lived in Ontario, Manitoba, Alberta, and BC. Alberta had the highest electricity I have ever experienced in any province ever. Ontario has high fees, has high rates, but it is nothing like Alberta. When I lived there, after we sold our house, I was in an apartment, right? My electricity one month, I was out of the city. So I had my heat set minimally. It was baseboard heating, and I went back home to Ontario. My electricity bill for that month that I wasn't there was $300 for a 2-bedroom apartment. My friend owned a townhouse, and for that month, their electricity bill with, an actual furnace, so just the electricity, was $1,600. And that's where they're talking about building data centers. So what is the electricity going to look like? And with the bubble in like Silicon Valley right now, there's people making money hand over fist. But when that pops, it's gonna be reminiscent of the pop, I think. Like I was talking about the .com pop, but do you remember the housing pop in 2008 when people were just throwing themselves? That is what I fear the AI pop will look like. Not so much like the .com pop, but the housing pop. And even in talking about that, I was getting frustrated earlier because it's just people don't understand how everything is just a domino effect, especially when it comes to globalization and when it comes to talking about like province v federal government. Alberta has no hesitation throwing so many resources towards money, trying to make more money. But because they're so conservative, they don't put that money into infrastructure. They don't put that money into, social programs. When Jasper was on fire and people were getting upset about the lack of aid they were receiving, it's because they had cut funding so dramatically to services that there wasn't enough people to help. And then there was a point in time where they had a water pipe break And it was like going on maybe like 1 or 2 months where the water was just broken and everyone was getting upset. And it's because they don't invest into social programs like infrastructure. They're so heavily invested into corporations. And then you want to couple it with these people that are completely okay. Like, I think to a degree, Mark Carney is capitulating to Alberta because they heavily want AI data centers. They want that money in their province. And he's also trying to, put out fires in that regards. So I can understand his perspective. These are all moving components that have to be weighed. And I don't think that Mark Carney is an unintelligent man. I just think that when we're looking at prioritizing, capitulating to a province of people who don't understand how anything functions, it's only going to further frustrate them with the federal government. When I was a personal trainer in Edmonton, and a lot of my clients were in the oil industry, but also a lot of my clients were in healthcare because they could personal train during the day. And the amount of cuts that were made to PSWs, to nurses, was dramatic at that point in time. And that was pre-pandemic into the pandemic. And then I'm watching these people who are leftist creators on this app get upset about people talking about these issues and saying that that we just need a united front. But what is that united front? And that's the thing, is you have a population of millions of people pretending that there's like one size fits all to all of these issues when they're so integrated into one another. And these are people with like, I think one of them was 300,000 followers, and they're going like, and name dropping Rachel Gilmore as well as a way to legitimize what they're saying because people don't like Rachel Gilmore. And it's just such a mirrored strategy to right-wing politics. I don't know, this is exactly why I don't like talking about politics, because you're conceptualizing, the way that I think of it is like you're conceptualizing all of these thoughts on a big whiteboard, and you're trying to understand how these things affect one another, and how you're trying to look down the road on how these things will play out in 5 years, in 10 years. But they're only operating from right now because they're scared, and they're scared of what the next 3 years looks like. And they're not able to take themselves out of that fear. I was scared 2 years ago. I'm less scared now than I was 2 years ago. I'm less scared now than I was a year ago, because if my pattern recognition has taught me anything, he's not doing well south of the border. He's really not doing well. He's losing control. He's losing followers. He's losing people supporting him. The people look up to like political figures around him, not just him. They're starting to slowly fall away. He's losing control of the narrative. I feel better politically now than I did a year ago. And that's just looking at, he doesn't have as much control as people thought he did or would. And I feel better. And so I do feel like we are able to have conversations about our political leaders and what we expect from them, what we want from them moving forward. I don't think we should be operating from a place of fear at this point.